Oh, okay. Where do I click? This side. Good evening. My name is Wendy Gediman, and I have been very lucky to have been to Antarctica 4 times, the Arctic once. That was actually enough. And it all has to do with being a TEDxTASIS. So, 2041, first of all, 2041 is the year that the Antarctic Treaty comes up for renewal. And it's very important. The treaty will stay in effect, but how it's kept in effect is what's going to happen. And the people that will determine this are the children for the future. In 2007, I was sitting down here with my pre-kindergarten class, and Robert Swan, the first person to walk to both the North Pole and the South Pole, was standing here talking about his expedition he had just come back from, which I think that was the 5th year. He did it every year, and he's still doing it. I went back to my classroom with my class, and I'd spoken to him briefly, said, thank you, the talk was quite interesting. And I spoke to him briefly, went back to my class, and Mrs. Hall, who was my pre-kindergarten aide, said, look, you have his book, Destination Antarctica. Little did I know, because I have 1 million books. And I guess most of them I don't even remember what they're called. But it's like, wow. So I said, I'm going to go have Robert Swan sign this book. He was in the head's office in the lower school having tea. I walked in, we got to talking. Before I knew it, I said, yes, I'll go. Little did I know fundraising, but before the 2008 crash, it was actually possible. So, luckily I raised enough money, bought the clothing. You can't just take your ski clothes, you have to have really good stuff. And I was ready to go. One thing I was very excited about was connecting my travels to the students here and also globally later on. So, again, 2041, we need to make sure Antarctica stays protected. It's the last pristine place on Earth. Very strict rules. Okay. Now, I'll go back for a moment. And also remember at that time, Rob spoke about global warming. And back in 2007, it wasn't really something people like to talk about or hear. And actually, the school had some complaints. How could you talk about global warming? Okay. Anyway, putting that aside, I went on this trip in 2008. We were on a small scientific ship that was falling apart. And going through the Drake's Passage, I thought I was going to die. In fact, I wanted to die. The waves were 11 meters high. We nearly flipped. We had no stabilizers on the ship, but I lived. And to this day, the kids love it when I talk about the fact I was curled up against the wall to stay in bed. And my roommate, I could hear her in the bathroom, and she screamed, and the ship went, phew, and she went flying off the toilet with the toilet seat. So kids love to hear those stories. Anyway, Rob, one important thing that Rob talked about to us on the voyage in 2008, well, besides being warned that Antarctica's out to get you, I was scared to death, I must say, the first time. Now, it's the place I feel safest. But anyway, he was telling us that, sharing with us why we needed to protect this beautiful place. And he had a bunch of corporate people on the ship and 2 teachers. I was one. And it was an incredible experience. Then in 2008 also, we went, it was called the E-Base trip. Rob was already there in Bellenhausen in one of the islands in the Antarctic, where he and a small team were living only using renewable energy. And we got there to pick them up, and I will say the weather was incredible. Everything was frozen. I was like scared to walk. Somebody did slip and break their ankle. That wasn't me, thankfully. But it was quite something. But we learned about how the renewable energy worked there, and it was amazing. In 2013, I returned. I was shocked, actually, when we were in Bellenhausen again, because there was barely any snow. Same time of year, same place, a place that should have still been frozen, wasn't. So that really woke me up to changes that were starting to happen. On this trip, we had Gareth, who was with Rob and Roger Muir back in 85, 86 when they walked 900 miles in the footsteps of Scott. And during that trip is when Rob really realized we've got to protect this place. And plus, Bellenhausen then had tons of rubbish from the Russian bases that had just been left on the beach. The penguins couldn't go on the beach, the seals. So Rob actually spent 5 years cleaning all of this up with a team of people. And during these trips, by the way, I would email information, things that were happening to the school, to the students, and they could write back to me, which was amazing to read what they thought, what they saw. As well, I think it's very important for children to hear stories from somebody they know. It becomes more real for them. In 2016, I was invited to go to Union Glacier, which is in the interior of Antarctica. We flew from Chile, and our goal was testing renewable technology for Rob and Barney and 2 other friends to walk to the South Pole using only renewable energy, which had never been done before. An amazing group of people. There were only 14 of us, which was actually fantastic to be in a small group. And we spent about 11 days there. Oh, sorry. Okay. There is Edward Balaban. He's a NASA scientist. He had a melting pot, a prototype that NASA had designed for melting water because in Antarctica, when you ski to the pole, walk to the pole, ski, you have to take dehydrated food, and you need to have hot water to rehydrate it. So this pot actually did work, and then the next year they built a proper pot that they actually used to walk to the South Pole using only renewable energy. And the cool thing about Edward is I kept that connection. Every year he would Zoom to the 5th grade students, talk about his work on the Artemis project, the space shuttle, and the new telescope that he's working on called the Fluid Telescope, which is even more powerful than the Webb. So, and our students were able to ask him questions and write to him, which was quite amazing. Also on the Union Glacier trip, I had a website, quite a big website, 80 Degrees South, which gave students information about the heroic age of exploration, the early explorers, also the environment, the different animals that lived there. And again, the students could read my regular updates on the website, see pictures, and write to me. I had two very special patrons. I'm lucky to have spent time with Jane Goodall and worked with Roots and Shoots here with her and been invited to spend time with her, and she was one of my patrons. My other patrons was somebody else I had met who's an amazing person. She's a wildlife artist. Her name is Daphia Scott. She's the granddaughter of Robert Scott. So they helped mentor me and make me feel really supported on this journey. So, by the way, Edward, while we were there, he went on a mission for NASA where he was searching in this one area we were at for microbial life in the dry permafrost, and it had only been found in one other part of Antarctica and also on Mars. So that was pretty cool, and he found that, again, he could share that with our students and showed them pictures and explain how that worked. So again, keeping the connection to our students and students globally. I've spoken at schools around the world and Zoomed many times, and that gives me great joy knowing that these kids are learning that this is an important place to protect, and also that it holds 90% of the Earth's frozen ice, and we don't want that to melt because it's on land, most of it, and we don't want the oceans to rise. So, in 2008, I took a TASIS student. Talk about risk assessments for field trips. But we wrote them. That's Robert Swan, myself, obviously a huge TASIS flag this time. And it was great having one of our students with us, and she could come back and talk to her upper school classmates. And I also was working on this trip. I didn't have to pay for this trip. I paid for the others. I didn't pay for this trip. I worked with a group of young people, and we did a lot of discussions and brainstorming. What could we do? Next, in 2019, it was the Arctic. I must admit, the Arctic is interesting. It's very scary with those polar bears. And 4 million people live in the Arctic. 0 people live in the Antarctic permanently. There's mining in the background of this picture. It's just a different place, but it's still an important place to take care of as well. So, and these two people on the end are from Roots and Shoots. So Roots and Shoots UAE and Roots and Shoots Tanzania. So it was great to collaborate with them because we do a lot of work at TASIS with Roots and Shoots. In fact, our students just won the Wildlife Champion Award for 2025, which, you know, makes them feel really proud, and I'm proud of them. So, for me, it's been incredible to go to Antarctica. But the most incredible thing is sharing it with our students, to make them excited, to have them understand. And all I can say is we have a beautiful earth, beautiful children, and we all are doing our part. Like Jane Goodall says, you don't have to do a big, giant thing. Just everyone doing their little part makes a huge change. So, thank you.